be our guest, or is our guest for today. Kevin is a good friend of mine, has been a good friend of mine for several years, and we've worked on a number of projects. Kevin is the Client Outcomes Officer for Playbook for Results. And I'm going to let Kevin be able to tell you what Playbook for Results is all about. But he understands athletic trainers. He's worked with athletic trainers. Kevin actually did the workshop when we did the third-party reimbursement pilot for the NATA. And so Kevin actually ran a workshop to teach sales and relationship training, et cetera, for that group. He spoke at GLADA, and this has been a few years ago. We had great comments from that, and athletic trainers are coming up saying, hey, we really need more of this. So that really is our goal. And so Kevin relates very well. So Kevin, welcome. Glad to have you on board, and I'm going to just kind of turn it over to you and let you share with us.
Clark, thank you. I appreciate it. We have Scott here with us on the call. Scott, I'm going to have to ask you some questions. You're going to be my guinea pig. Thanks for being here with us so that we can have an AT to speak with. Yeah, I appreciate the intro. Without going too much deeper into it, I would ask you this question. Are you good at athletic training? My expectation was you would say, yes, I'm a good athletic trainer. You should ask me, am I good at sales? I would say, yes, I'm good at sales. I'm not good at other things. I'm not good at drawing. For instance, I can't draw a straight line to save my life. I couldn't draw a stick figure if I had to, but I am good at sales. So that's why I'm in front of you to talk about this particular topic. Let me kind of quickly get into a few comments and some ideas, and then we'll get to some Q&A with Scott, and we'll get deeper into this. First and foremost, I want you to understand that, most people are not in a traditional sales role, but most people still have to sell. Right? You happen to be some of those type of people. Your primary job is taking care of people, helping them recover from injury, et cetera. But your secondary or tertiary role might be to sell yourself or to sell your business or your services. And so you need to understand that I'm not thinking of you as a person who's absolutely a sales person or a sales pro. I'm thinking of you as a medical professional, but someone who also has this aspect of needing to be able to do some work in the sales arena. So I'm going to come at it from that perspective. I think in our teaser video, we had 4 key areas that I want to cover with you, maybe just 2 or 3 points in each of those key areas. And then we'll, as I said, get back to asking some questions to go a little deeper. I want to try and address some of the things on your mind. I started by doing that a bit, I think, by sharing with you how we are going to approach this conversation with you. Another question you might have in your mind is like, is this really applicable to me? And so I would just ask you this question. Are you ever in a situation where you need to find a way to bring in more revenue for the work that you do? Whether it's at your current role, whether it's because you want to start a business, whether it's with your current clients or any other place. If you're in a position where you want or need to bring in more revenue for the work that you do, then this is definitely for you. If you're not in that type of a position, you're making all you want to make, you're busy as you can ever be, and life is fantastic, this is honestly not for you. And I want to make sure that we are very clear about that. So the 4 areas that we find that best in class sales professionals win in are the areas of, number 1, knowing and understanding their role. In fact, more importantly, I would say fulfilling their role. Once they know what their role is and they understand what their role is, if they can fulfill that role, then they're going to be very successful. But let's get back to that here in just a second. Let me go through the other 4 or the other 3 that are left. The second thing is, there's always activity involved in any of our efforts. So whether you're doing athletic training or you're doing other work, there's always activity involved. So the question is, can we make sure that all the activity we're doing, especially towards bringing in more revenue, is activity that is actually getting us the results we want, instead of activity that's wasted on not getting us anywhere? Again, we'll come back to that. The third thing is a business mindset. It's very important to have or to adopt a business mindset when you're thinking about what can I do to bring in more revenue, or to build differently, or in addition for some of the services that I offer. A business mindset is going to be critical. So that's the third of the 4 things. And then the 4th thing is, and quite honestly, it's probably the best one of them all, is to have an actual client focus. Now, I'm going to start there and then go back to the role of a sales pro. Here's why I want to start with client focus. I do believe it's the most important one, but already you are probably thinking to yourselves, I do have a client focused. I'm totally focused on my client whenever they have an injury or need my help in whatever whatever needs to be done. Taking care of a serious injury, a leg cramp, getting them ready for the next conditioning workout, getting them ready for the next, performance, whatever those things may be. You probably are focused on your client, but I want you to think of focused on your client this way. Am I thinking in my mind about what is probably on their minds? Am I really able to be the person instead of next to the table, on the table, wondering about how I'm going to be able to get back on the field or what the recovery process might be like for an injury or otherwise? I want you to really think like, am I actually putting myself in their shoes? It's a very difficult thing to actually do, but when we do it, we put ourselves in a better position to have great communication, great service, and provide great care. All things I'm confident that you want to do for your clients. By the way, all three things which drive up the value of what you do for your clients, which means ultimately more opportunities for you to bring in more revenue. So that client-focused piece is super critical. How am I able to think like them? If I was a person with an ankle injury, if I was a person that was getting ready for a huge event, a huge performance or competition, if I was that person and I was in this situation, what might be going through my mind? The more, again, that we do to think like them, the more we can serve them at their level, which is a huge win. So let's go back to what I started with, which was the role of a sales professional. There are several components, as you can probably imagine, when we look at what the best in class do to be successful. We actually have come up with a list of about 10 things. It could have been 8, it could have been 12, but quite honestly, it happened to magically work out as 10. We weren't trying to get 10. And we said, what are these people doing consistently, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out, to be successful at bringing in revenue? And they're not all in direct sales roles. Many of them are in roles like yours, where sales is a component to what they do, but not their primary function. And so when we said, what are those things that they do? And this list of 10 pops up. And I'm not going to go through all 10 with you, really, but I do want to share a couple of them with you that I think are super applicable in your space. So number one, understand the wants and the needs of my client. That obviously goes right back to just what I said about being client focused, right? Understand the wants and needs of my client. How do I do that? Number one, try to think like them, as we just said. Anticipate the things that they may be going to ask or that may be on their minds. Don't assume that they understand or know what it is you're talking about when you're giving them information or advice. We need to ask questions. We need to qualify through that questioning. We need to listen to what they're saying to us. I'm going to hesitate there, pause there for just a second, because I see this a lot. And I'm not saying in the AT space, just in general, I see this a lot. We predict what they're going to say next because we've been here before. I've treated 1,000 patients. I know what the next one's going to say. Instead of remembering that this patient and this interaction or this athlete that I'm working with is the first time possibly that I'm working with them on this, or is certainly their own individual. And so even if they still go down the path that someone else has gone down with you before, let's completely listen to what they have to say to us so that we are fully engaged in building that right relationship. Again, that all leads back to revenue. Interestingly enough, especially given your space, I'm not going to talk about pain points because I don't believe that that's the right thing to talk about. That is what I would consider only half or less than half of real sales training. And we hear about it all the time. What are your pain points? What keeps you up at night? And the truth of the matter is there's, especially in your space, so many more important things to talk about than what is causing them pain. And I use that term very loosely because we're not referring to an injury here. We're referring to what the challenges are, because many athletes might want to achieve something versus just get something fixed, and you can help them do those things, right? So that's that first component of the role of a sales pro, which is understanding the wants and needs of my clients. Let's get deeper into the role of a sales pro and cover a couple more. If you know what's important to your athlete, then you can acknowledge and address those things through all of the procedures, the processes, the work you're doing with them over time. so that they know that what you're doing is designed to help them achieve what they're working to achieve. It may seem like that's obvious in the relationship, but let's make it obvious. If it's not already completely obvious by being spoken, let's make it clear. In your role as an athletic trainer, I think it's very important that you are thinking about this relationship aspect in the perspective of developing and sustaining mutually beneficial relationships. So you want to keep that relationship in place as long as you can. You want to work with as many people as long as you can. This is good for them. This is good for you. And again, it drives revenue. Next, I would say that we kind of talked about activity with results earlier. I'm going to shift to that a second through this last bullet point I want to talk about here under the role of a sales pro, which is, it's really your responsibility to build profitable sales for you and or your organization, if there's an organization that you're working for or with, right? So as you build profitable sales for your organization, you're going to do it through activity that's driving results back to the organization. There's a lot of ways to probably look at it, but your ability to connect, your ability to persuade are very closely tied to the relationship that you're building. So then let's look at activity with results for just a minute and kind of talk through that. I would guess that if you looked at an average day in the life of an athletic trainer, there are things that you do that you're like, why am I doing this? Does it help my business? Does it help me? Does it get me anywhere? Does it drive any revenue for me? And you're reflecting on it and you're answering to yourself and you're saying, no, it's not really getting me anywhere. And I want to encourage you to abandon anything that isn't helping you achieve your objectives. Now, there are things that we have to do that are rote, paperwork, whatever, things that just have to be done. And that's not what I'm referring to. I'm simply saying if there's activities that you're doing that you're trying over and over again, or trying to just try and bring in more revenue or whatever you're trying to do, and they're not working for you, then let's abandon those types of things and get on to something else. Shifting to the business mindset, I think this is the piece that when Clark talks about, this business aspect of what he's doing with all the people he's bringing in to speak with you and to provide content for you, this is a very important component. Being business minded is about really two sides of the coin. Now, in your role, I will say that you've got this business minded piece for you yourself, where you need to think a little bit like a business person. I'm not saying be a shark or anything like that. I'm simply saying make good decisions, make financially good decisions, business decisions for you and for your business and for your practice. But the other aspect of the business side is if you are employed by somebody in an AT type role, then you need to be making the types of decisions that are also healthy for the business that you work for. There even could be a third component, and that would be when you're outsourcing yourself to other entities that you're not maybe an employee for, but you're a contractor for or want to become a contractor for. Having that business-minded mentality as you think about those relationships also will help drive things very far. So now, what do I mean when I say business-minded? Because in fairness, we probably should put something behind that a little bit. So let me start with maybe just a couple of quick bullet points and then we'll move on. First and foremost, I believe that you should be putting yourself in a position to maximize your compensation. That's the point of sales. If we're going to talk about sales, let's be very candid and honest about it. It's about maximizing your compensation. So that's the first thing I would suggest to you. The second thing I would suggest are real business terms. We call them current spend, total spend, and potential spend. And then we also call them AOV and LTV, which is average order value and lifetime value. Don't let me bore you with these terms, but let me quickly just describe them to you. So I'll start with the last one, lifetime value and average order value. It's probably obvious. If I go to Starbucks and I drive through in the morning on my way to work and I order my whatever frumpity frappuccino latte thingy that I get, it's probably going to cost me $6.50. Why do I know that? Because that's the average order value for everyone that goes to Starbucks when you take all the customers and divide it by the revenue they got. So we know that the average order value is $6.50 at Starbucks. The lifetime value, which is the other term that I just shared, is how much am I going to spend going to Starbucks in the entirety of all the time I go to Starbucks? And for your typical working person that goes 5 days a week, let's say 50 weeks a year for 40 years of their life, we're talking $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. Significant. all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, every time a new person walks into Starbucks, to them, they're not staring at a $6.50 order. They're staring at what is probably going to become a $50,000 to $60,000 business deal for them. That's why everyone that comes in needs to get the right service and the same service everywhere they go, so that experience is matched. Well, if you translate that to what we do, it should be obvious that I want to drive up my average order value. If Starbucks drives it up from 650 to 7 and can continue to provide all that same experience and same flavor and same taste and all that stuff, and I can do the same thing in my business by having this great connection, this great relationship, providing incredible service, then I should be able to drive up my average order value, which also drives up my lifetime value of working with a particular client or athlete. I also said at the beginning of this little component on business mindset that there was these three terms: current spend, total spend, and potential spend. And quite honestly, I think this is an area that we've got to explore together and probably a separate conversation. But this is what those things mean. If I am working with an athlete today and I am doing whatever for them, it doesn't really matter what the practice is that I'm doing with them, and they are spending a certain amount of dollars with me, we call that current spend. Let's just say they're spending $1,000 a month with you. But if they are getting other services from other people that I could be doing, I'm missing out on that revenue. Let's say they're actually spending a total of $2,000 a month. So they're spending $1,000 with me, but that other $1,000 that they're spending on things that I could be doing is my opportunity, right? Because that's their total spend is $2,000 a month. There's no reason I shouldn't want all 2,000 of that if I can provide those services. So that's current and total spend. And if I, again, leave it there, I'm leaving you short because it's not very business minded. It's just sort of business minded, which is, hey, there's extra money. Where I want to go with this, and where I think we should have some kind of exploratory conversation at some point, is what is the actual potential spend of that client? Like, in other words, are there things that I could be doing for them that I don't normally do, that they're not paying for somebody else to do because no one's really thought about it, but that are also available to them? And that's a potential spend category. So not only do I have this opportunity to take what they're currently spending and capture all of what they're spending in a month, not just with me, but with everyone, that's services I could do, but potentially I could increase that even more by saying, there's other things that I could offer. I'm not suggesting to you right now that I know what those things are. Again, I'd love to have a conversation around them, but some ideas that come to mind instantly are, could I partner with somebody who does nutrition work and bring in revenue from the nutrition side? Could I partner with somebody who does supplement and vitamin work or other types of stuff like that? Could I partner with them and bring in additional revenue on the side? Again, I'm not trying to push you in that direction. I'm simply saying our minds need to begin going down the path of what other potential spend could add income to my pockets. And then that brings us back to client focus, which is where we kind of started. So role of a sales pro, fulfilling it, which are those things we talked about, understanding the wants and needs of your client, et cetera. Activity with results, making sure that everything I'm doing is converting well for me. It needs to be high conversion ratios on all my activity. Business mindset and client focus. All right, so this is where I want to pause. And maybe, Scott, I can go to you and ask you a couple of questions. Let's start with, if you don't mind, a quick understanding of sort of your AT position. Do you work for another entity? Do you mostly work for yourself? As a 1099, et cetera? And Scott, hopefully we have you. I do see you on mute, so. He had a few technical difficulties earlier getting in, so I'm going to give him a few seconds here to try and get back to us. All right, no problem. He's having some technical difficulties, so that's all right. We're going to just move a little bit farther forward. Let's talk about how you really apply this stuff. I mean, we shared the information with you, but let's talk about how we actually apply it. So from an application standpoint, here's how you apply it. The first thing you do is you say, let me just take my next client, whoever that is, and let me write down 3 or 4 things that I think are really on that person's mind. And then when I meet with them, I want to share those 3 or 4 things. If I had a room full of you right now, and we were just kicking off the morning with this session, I would say to you right out of the gate, first words out of my mouth, that you probably have some questions on your mind. Questions like, how long is this going to take? Is it going to be worth my time? when's the first break? When are we done for the day? And Kevin, do you have any right to be in front of me today, or are you just somebody they found to read a bunch of slides to me? I mean, I think those would be fair and legit questions that would be on your mind, and we'd want to address them right away, right? Breaks are every hour. We're going to be done on time or approximately on time. We won't let the clock dictate our conversation, but we will let the content dictate it. If we're done, we're done. So we would respond to those things. Well, same thing for you. If you're able to put together a list of those things that you believe would be on the minds of the people that you work with, then we need to work towards addressing those things. Once those things are being removed from their mind, then they're in a space where they can much more focus on the conversation at hand. And we are too, by the way, because we've eliminated some of those roadblocks, and we can just totally focus on the conversation at hand. The next thing that you could do to apply what we're talking about here is recognize that you probably don't have all the things that are on their mind. So the next thing you do is you ask them, those are some of the things I thought might be on your mind, but what did I miss? What else do you want to make sure that I know, or that we cover, or that we talk about, or otherwise? And so that would be the second thing I would do in these type of scenarios, is I would figure that stuff out. All right, then I would work on that activity component and say, okay, well, if this is what they really want, then what can I deliver back to them from a business perspective? And from an activity perspective, how do I do it in such a way that I ensure that we move forward together and they become a new client, or a larger client, or a more frequent client, or whatever those things are that language may be. Now I'm going to hesitate. Hesitate's the wrong word. I'm going to pause for a second. I hesitate on my end. I'm going to pause for a second, because I'm not trying to say to you, get as much money out of every person as you can. That is absolutely not what I'm trying to say, but it sounds a little like that. So to be fair, what I mean to say is this: you are responsible for delivering to somebody everything you can to help them achieve their objectives. Let me say that again. It is your responsibility to help anyone you are working with achieve their objectives. And you need to do that by doing everything you can for them. Those things should be billable items, right? So I would not do something for somebody that didn't help them in any way, shape, or form. That wouldn't be good ethics. But if I do have something to offer that can help them, then it's the right thing for me to do to put that on the table. Let's invert and think like the athlete for just a minute. You guys don't know me very well. When I spoke with NATA and GLADA a few years back, I was not into pickleball. I'm into pickleball today. Don't even know if you know that sport, but given that it's growing rapidly and it's kind of popping up all over the nation, you probably have at least heard of it or seen it on TV somewhere at this point in time. Okay, I love the sport. I mean, I was a pretty competitive athlete in tennis up through college. I was a competitive athlete in racquetball, and so both racket sports, and I absolutely loved racket sports. And now I'm a competitive athlete in pickleball. But let me tell you something. I'm not physically in the shape that I need to be in to win championships, but I intend to win the world championship. So knowing that about me should tell you that I want everything you have to offer. If I found out a year later that you could have done something for me a year ago that would have accelerated my progress towards achieving my goals, but you didn't do it for me because you didn't want to share it with me, or you didn't want to tell it to me, or you were scared to, or you didn't want to charge me too much, or any of that crap, I would be super frustrated, because I'd be like, that's not the kind of person I want to work with. I want to work with someone who helps me achieve my objectives. So when I say to you, you have a responsibility to provide somebody everything you can possibly provide them to help them achieve those top goals, I really mean that's a truism. Now, that should lead you to one major question, which is, well, I need to find out what their top goals are, right? And the answer is yes. You've got to figure out what their top goals are. What do they want to achieve? All right, so I'm going to pause. I see that we have Scott back. Scott, thanks for giving us the heads up there so that we could get you on at the right time here. My first quick question for you would be, just give us an update or a heads up on, your work environment. Who do you work for? Do you work for yourself? Just give us some kind of background.
Yep. So I oversee a sales team, which is ironic that you're on this call today. So I oversee a sales team. So I do, my technical title is business development manager. So I oversee all of the sales, advertising, marketing, and new service line creation for Williams Brothers. We're a healthcare pharmacy, so home medical equipment, pharmacy, retail pharmacy, Long-term care pharmacy, home infusion, wound care, respiratory. So I spent the first 6 years of my career as a collegiate athletic trainer, did a 2-year internship with the Indianapolis Colts, was going to be a collegiate athletic trainer. That's what I was going to do for 40 years. And life happens. I always say dreams change, but your purpose doesn't, right? So my purpose was to impact healthcare to the best of my ability. I'm now doing that in the home care space. So
Love it.
Yeah, I believe in what we offer is superior to everybody else's, and we're trying to generate lifetime value to the patients that we serve. So,
well, interesting, because that ties into my conversation earlier about we need to find other potential spend areas and people who we can partner with to bring in extra revenue. And here you are popping on the call saying, I'm
right.
probably that guy. So
Right.
Cool. All right, good.
Yeah.
But you're not acting as an athletic trainer today, but you're partnering with athletic trainers.
Yeah, so I'm the only athletic trainer within my organization. I maintain my credential. I work PRN as a high school athletic trainer. I also am a medical spotter for the Big Ten Conference. So I still get my fill of traditional athletic training, and I got a master's degree for a reason. I don't want to let that go to the side, but I've really enjoyed getting to see a different side of healthcare. And I got a young family, so the hours certainly fit my family's needs way better than a traditional athletic trainer or somebody that's on the road for half the year. So
got it. I appreciate the background. It probably doesn't lend itself to the next couple of questions I was going to ask, but that's okay. It's still, I think, important to hear what you're doing because again,
sure,
it does feed into the conversation we had before. Scott, I would ask you, do you, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, I'll preface it by saying that, but do you do any, 1099 work on the side regarding athletic training, or is it you just fulfill your time with this role?
Yep. So the Big Ten, the medical spotter stuff would be considered 1099.
Okay.
But that would be the only thing. I don't have an athletic training room out of my garage, or I'm not working with a physician, a supervising physician to provide treatment to clients or patients.
Got it.
It's been an idea, but we just never gone down that path yet.
Well, that pharmacy / supplement, whatever, area that you're talking about makes sense. So that's that primary business, right?
Right. Yep. Now I'm trying to find some passive income. So if you got some passive income opportunities, Kevin, let me know.
Yeah, I think we get some athletic trainers combined with you and we can figure that out. So yeah.
Right.
Good. Appreciate it, Scott. Thank you. Let me Clark, kind of wrap this up with a few little comments, and then we will be able to end this session and move on. And I can take any feedback anyone has over time, or I can take emails if people have questions that listen to this later. So I want to sort of sum up what I said just to make sure we're all on the same page. We have a role to fulfill, and that role to fulfill is very much in service to other people, which I don't know about you, but I love serving other people. It's one of the things that drives me to do what I do. And I don't do a ton of sales. I mean, I'm good at sales, as I mentioned, but that's not really my primary thing. My primary thing is sort of what you see here. I speak with a lot of people. I do a lot of executive coaching. I do a lot of sales training and leadership training and workshops. And I love it because I get to work with people all day long. And I'm guessing that one of the reasons you love athletic training is because you get to work with people all day long. And I certainly would guess that if you don't like working with people, you probably are thinking you may have taken the wrong career path by getting into athletic training. So you probably love that. And so if that's the case, then there's no reason to avoid taking on the opportunity to grow your own personal brand and your own personal business, right? And we're going to do that through several things. We're going to do that through focusing on that person that we're working with, always focusing on them, which means getting in their shoes as much as absolutely possible. We're going to do that by ensuring that we understand what's really important to them. What are the top wants and needs that they have? Like I said, mine happens to be I'm a world champion pickleball player someday. And I'm 3 years in at working at it and certainly progressing, but I've got a long ways to go. The next thing is, if we're going to have any activity, let's make sure that activity is helping us achieve what we want to achieve in life. And I'll tell you a quick story. I feel like it was Tiger Woods that I heard this about. I do not know why I'm drawing a blank right now, but I'll tell you the story either way. Professional players, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, I don't care, pick a sport. It doesn't matter what sport you pick. They have given up something in their life. So let's say that I love history and I love historical movies and I love reading history in books. And, I've got all David McCullough stuff and I just read. That's great. But if my objective is to be a top pro pickleball player, and I am spending time that I should be focused on my pickleball game, reading books, then I need to make a decision. Is it really that important to me? Am I sold out to the cause, my own cause of achieving this objective? And the evidence suggests that I'm not. If I'm giving up time that I should be working towards my objective to do other things, then I'm really not sold out to that cause, am I? So I've got to quit doing the things that keep me from achieving what I want to achieve. Super easy, simple sentence to say, super difficult thing to actually apply in life. But I need to quit doing all the things that keep me from being successful. That's sort of that activity with results statement summed up in a different way. Any activity I do should be getting me results. So I'm going to quit reading the history books. I'll save those for after I get my championship ring. I want to focus on that championship ring instead first. And then business-minded piece of it, which is literally probably the most difficult, I think, for most people to adopt and to understand. How do I really take what I'm doing and think about it as a business? Because even if you're in Scott's role or you're an athletic trainer that reports into a medical facility, a hospital, a college, a university, whatever, even if you're an employee in those cases, you still need to be business-minded about everything that you do, because the truth of the matter is you still are running your own business. You have made a decision as to how much you're going to get paid because you took that role for the pay that they're offering. You've made a decision on how much you're going to get paid because you've made a decision in terms of where you're going to put your time and your efforts. And if you want to expand your brand and expand your opportunity, then you've got to look beyond that. And so even in your current role, whatever it is, be business-minded, because that will drive us out to thinking about more and more of that potential spend and even total spend category that we talked about before, versus current spend, which equals the revenue that I'm making today. All right, so Clark, I think that probably sums up today and our topic pretty well. I do want to provide some information so that if others have questions watching this in a recorded format, that they can get responses. Maybe you have questions about, well, how do I write an email that gets me a response? Or how do I ask for more money? Or how do I set up or structure a deal that is with a different entity that I wouldn't normally work with to kind of create that additional revenue? Clark, I want to help people achieve that stuff. So they can reach out to me. I do free consultations. You want to hire me to be your business consultant? That's a different thing. But if you want to send an email to me and ask me what I think, I don't charge you for that. I don't believe that in doing that. I believe in building a relationship. So here is my email address. It's Kevin, traditional spelling, Kevin, @ and then it's just 4 total characters. PB, like peanut butter, PB, the number 4, and the letter R.com. It stands for Playbook for Results. That's the name of my company, but Kevin at pb4r.com. You want to reach out to me over email, just tell me that you saw me with Clark on the recording for athletic trainers. I'll know exactly what you're referencing, and I will get back with you within 24 hours. Clark, let me hand it back to you. And if you have any questions for Scott or for me, feel free to fire away. If you want to sum anything up or close us out, it's all yours, my friend.
Sure. Hey, Kevin, thank you. You and I, as I said, have known each other for years. Every time I hear you speak on a topic, I always learn something. So thank you. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully Scott has as well, and others have been there. Scott, I guess I would ask you, has this stimulated any questions? Have you got questions for Kevin? Since you're kind of in this area, what kind of questions would you have for him?
Yeah, Kevin, I guess the unique thing about my setting is we're really working with referral-based sales instead of perpetually closing a deal, right? So we're trying to develop a relationship with a physician so that he always sends us his wound vacs, or he always sends us his ventilator patients. So any experience where you're trying to really develop a perpetual pipeline compared to just I got to close this deal with this company, and then I'm going to pass it off to my account manager, where we are almost sales managers overseeing specific positions, stuff like that. So that's a little bit unique in my role. Instead of just the one-time sale, it's that perpetual sale.
Yeah. We look at that as a distribution channel, which is a whole nother great conversation. And the more distribution channels you set up, in your case, doctors' offices, but the more of those, or doctors specifically, the more of those you set up and the more of those that you can manage, the better and more healthy your funnel is, which is obvious. And the other thing is about a funnel that you bring up, I don't want a funnel to have like this V shape where I feel like only small stuff gets through a hole at the bottom. I mean, to me, I want it to just be like a cylinder. Whatever goes in comes out the bottom. I want all those deals. And so I love your thinking there. And, I would just think about how do I set up even more distribution channels, because this, I'm preaching the choir at this point, but it's not just doctors that can bring you those patients, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any other questions you can address?
Yeah, I guess another comment would be, in my role, I worked at a hospital for 5 years, and I reimbursed for athletic training services. Clark knows this, and I may have had to step out when you guys talked about it, but I think talking about value is when you're billing for your services, the way that you show your value is by maximizing what you're able to bill for. So we often I think I heard you say, we don't want to charge you too much. Well, then you're devaluing you as a professional because you're not charging what you provided or the services that you provided. So by devaluing your services, you're showing you're not worth as much as another peer or a PT or an OT in that same space. So making sure that for those that are looking at AT reimbursement, that you're maximizing your treatment sessions to bill the maximum amount. And again, it's to show you're billing your education level. You're not billing to harm the patient financially. You're billing to showcase, yep, I'm billing you because this is what I learned, this is what I know. So I think that's another crucial piece of what we as athletic trainers can do in the business space.
I love that you're saying that. I tend to relate it back to wine. So I happen to like wine. I don't drink a lot of it, but I do every once in a while. I think a good glass of wine is a fantastic thing. And I'll be honest, there was a long time in my life when I started a $9 bottle of wine and a $17 bottle of wine. And if they both said Merlot, I was buying the $17 bottle of wine because there's this implicit idea that it's more expensive, therefore it's better. Over time, I've learned that that's probably not really the case, but it doesn't matter because so many people are convinced instantly that when something costs more, it has more quality, it has more value, it has more impact, whatever. And that's very, very true with what people choose to spend their money on regarding their health. I mean, I work with a client that sells, turmeric drops, and, people will spend $55 for a small bottle right here, a small bottle of turmeric drops. You can't even see that because they know what it's doing for their body, right? So not claims the company's making, claims that the people are making. So like, okay, $55 for one bottle, it goes me one whole month. But some people go, $55, that's a lot of money. But other people go, $55 to not wake up and feel foot pain is nothing. And so it's really relative. And Scott, what you're saying is for your patient, it's very relative. If you come in and do work on me and you go, oh, it's only $20, I'm going to be like, I'm not sure I trust what this gal just did for me. Maybe I should find somebody else. But you come in and go, hey, it's $300. I go, okay, man, they must know what the heck they're doing. I'm gonna make sure I follow all their directions and do what they tell me to do, and I'm gonna rehab the way they tell me to rehab, etc. So it's very valuable information and insight, Scott. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and then I guess the last comment, and it's more of a comment than a question, is, Clark, we often hear that athletic trainers want to advance the profession. They want to advocate for the profession. Well, what you're doing when you're advocating or trying to advance is you're selling the profession, right? So you may be a traditional athletic trainer working in a collegiate setting, but you're a salesperson. You're selling yourself to that patient. You're selling yourself to that client to gain their trust, to gain their rapport, but then also broader, as we work to advance the profession throughout the state, we're selling ourselves to legislators, to lobbyists, to insurance companies to say, hey, we matter. We're athletic trainers, and these are what we can do. So as we as athletic trainers, as an entire group of professionals work to advance ourselves, we're selling ourselves to those folks. So I just think we all need to remember that we're all salespeople. At the end of the day, everybody's selling something. So Kevin, I just want to say thanks, because I think it hits home with.
I think when we talk about sales, Scott, so many people, and you're doing sales, so many people think of the car salesman, right? And you're getting trapped and you're getting stuck. Mm-hmm. And Kevin and everything that he talks about is about relationships. and understanding your client and quality and being able to develop that. And I know that's what athletic trainers are all about. So anything else, Scott, that you might have, or Kevin, that you might have? I mean, I think Kevin, you've done a great job with that, and I thank you so much for that. And Scott, thanks for being on here. Anything else, Kevin, to add here?
Just a thank you, Clark. I always appreciate the opportunity to get in front of people who are making a difference in other people's lives. I like to do that. I love that you do that. And so thank you for the opportunity to talk to athletic trainers. It's not always the same for me. Some of the people I talk to are just selling widgets. So this is much more fun for me. Thank you.